Today we are considering another role model, quite unusual, and is recorded in the Gospel of John, chapter 4. It was a time that Jesus was traveling, as he was always traveling, and he left Judea and he was on his way to Galilee, and he passed through Samaria. That was a region that was a bit inimical to observant Jews. And he was really tired, and it was midday, and they had not eaten. So the disciples went to the village to look for food. And Jesus had sat down to rest just at the well. And at a point, a woman came to fetch water. And that was really a chance encounter with Jesus. That woman was not supposed to fetch water at this time of the day. You know, midday is the worst time to fetch water because it's so sunny, so hot, and definitely she should have normally waited for the sunset. That's the time that we can see in the Bible that women were gathering to fetch water, to bring the cattle if they had any. But the reason she did that was not explained but hinted that this woman was badly considered. Probably she was considered as a bit of a harlot in town. And we see in the story that she had been married a number of times, which was frowned upon. And she was now living with a man she was not married to. So she came, and Jesus looked at her, and he did something that was also unusual that he didn't do with the other people. Normally people were bringing their troubles to him, to the disciples, saying, please help. Or they were sick and they were asking for healing. But this time around, it was Jesus that initiated the conversation. And what he did was quite strange. He asked the woman to give him drink. Could have looked normal because he was thirsty and he had no water to drink. But the woman was startled, and she said, how can you ask me for a drink? And they started having a conversation. And she clearly recognized him as a Jew. And she said, why are you asking me? Don't you know that Jews and Samaritans don't talk to each other? I know, I'm a Samaritan. But Jesus brushed the conversation aside. And she started then a discussion. First of all, about the water. She said, how can you ask me for a drink? And then Jesus told him, you don't understand. And yes, there is water for thirst, but I give more than that. And if you knew, you would have asked me instead of me asking you. And she started asking him, how will you fetch water if I ask you? And you could see that that woman was unusually bold, at a point where women were not counted in census. Women were not supposed to talk, and they sat in a different place in the synagogue with men. But she didn't hesitate to start talking to that stranger. So it all started on the surface. Chit-chat, you would call it. She said, okay, you want to give me water. What about your bucket? You don't have a bucket, and that well is deep. Or are you saying that you are bigger than Jacob, who gave us that well? And Jesus continues saying, the one I give water will never be thirsty again. And then she said, wow, please give me that water. And it was looking like she was still in a joking mode, saying, see, I have to come all that way, walking for a long distance under the sun just to fetch water. So that would be perfect if you give me that and I don't thirst again. I don't need to work again, to walk. And then Jesus started on a deeper level and said, okay, bring your husband. And she said, I don't have any. And Jesus started revealing to her what he knew by word of knowledge about her private life, saying, you are right. You have been married that number of times, and the man you are living with now is not even your husband. And then she was surprised. She said, so you are a prophet. And then she started talking about the differences in doctrine between the Samaritan and the rest of the Jews. And then the conversation continued, until Jesus revealed himself to her as the Messiah. It was about one of the very few times, if not the only one, where he told someone, I am the Messiah. He never told that to any other, except when he was with Pilate. So you see that you have two people there, and Jesus starts with a decent, polite chat, albeit unusual. But then that lady was the only one that showed a deep interest for politics and religious matters. And this was quite unusual on her part. Shows that she was quite aware. She had been discussing with men, and she was probably seeing herself quite as equal with the men. And that was unusual for her time. But Jesus didn't shut her up. He didn't say, why can't you talk about something else? This is not a talk for women. He never said so. And Jesus was always interested in reaching out to the people that were the outcast, the downtrodden in the society, the lepers, the sick, and women. He was always on the side of women, showing grace, compassion. And he took her the way she was. She was interested into politics, and he went into it. She was interested in doctrine and belief, and he went along. Not only that, but he encouraged her and brought light into our foggy ideas, precise answers, telling her, yes, it's true that Samaritans and Jews don't pray the same way and the same place, but all this is just temporary. One day, everyone will be worshipping in spirit and in truth. And she went along, and she received the teaching that he was offering her one-to-one. And then, in the end, when he said, I'm the Messiah, she had very little time left. The disciples were coming back from the village, and they were really surprised to see Jesus and this woman talking like that. But she just dropped her bucket. So her interest was no more in bringing water to the village. And she ran all the way back and called the whole village together, which shows that everybody knew that woman in the village. She was badly considered, but that day she brought something special to them, saying, come on, I've met someone. He's the Messiah. Go and meet him. And they went. The whole village flocked to the well. chatted with Jesus, invited him, and he spent several days in that village. And that was quite unusual. So that woman turned out to be the first evangelist. She had no tag, no special t-shirt to say evangelist. Her name is not even mentioned, except that she was a Samaritan, because that alone says where she came from. But Jesus uplifted her and brought her to the level and the place where he knew that she was to be. And so she's a role model to us. No matter what stopped you, blocked you, no matter the bad reputation you might have, no matter the mistakes you have made in life, not one, not two, not three. She had been married so many times, and obviously she was an outcast. But she became a precious, loving, caring evangelist. She didn't want to receive that joy that Jesus gave her for herself alone. She wanted the whole village to share it. And she did. She just called them unashamedly. So let's do like her, and you will be blessed.